Simple enough, right? Simple enough example. And something we could imagine happening, right? Where somebody literally I give my life so that someone else can live. Huh? A word for that is, I sacrifice myself so that someone else can live. Right? Now, if that happens, let's say it's me, I'm right here, and I see that guy, and I come running in here, I come running in there, and I jump in front of you, then I have time to decide, don't I? I can see what's happening, and I can see that you're going to get killed unless somebody does something, and it's going to be me. And in this time here, I'm willingly giving myself. It's not an accident. I'm decided I'm going to give my life away. Huh? You've heard, I'm just thinking of one of these, I forget his name now, I can see his face. It was in Iraq about 4 or 5 years ago. When the fighting was terrible in the cities, and these American troops went into this room, and somebody, 5 or 6 of them, somebody threw out a grenade. And this one guy, there were 7 or 8 people, soldiers in the room, and this one guy saw that, threw himself on the grenade. And he saved 5 or 6 people's lives. Of course, he lost his own. But he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. It wasn't an accident. He deliberately sacrificed himself so that others could live. Well, this business of sacrifice, that's, as Jesus says, no one has greater love than to lay down your life for your friends. Ask yourself if that isn't true. Huh? If you had a friend that you knew would give his life or her life for you, well, how much better a friend can you get? You know? And this is what Jesus tells us, and this is what he does. He lays down his life for us. He doesn't run away. He could have escaped easily if he wanted to. He willingly went to the cross for us, for you and for me. And he laid down his life in sacrifice. I think of the altar. I don't know, how many of you have seen the movie The Passion of the Christ? Okay. If you haven't, it's certainly something. We might even try to show it here if we have time sometime. It takes a bit of a while to see it, but I remember the scene where Jesus is crucified. It's kind of like he's thrown down, you know, and they throw him down on the ground, as I recall. I often think of the altar that way. We're getting a new marble altar in the church, and one of the reasons for that is you could imagine it could hold up a body. It's heavy enough to support a body. You could imagine a human body laid down on that marble. It can hold it up. Because in the ancient world, when they did sacrifice, they do it on stone altars. Because if you did it on wood, it might not bear the weight of all the cutting and the killing. Yeah? And so the idea that Jesus lays down his life so that we can stand up and walk. Huh? The sacrifice of the Mass. So when Jesus says, "This is my body, this is my blood," what he's saying is, in effect, I am sacrificing myself for you. Okay. Now, Jesus, obviously, this does not happen before our eyes, does it, at Mass? Jesus died once, and he will never die again. But what he is God, and time belongs to God, not God to time. And so what Jesus did then, he willed to do forever. He is God, and he loves every single person. And so he willed to give himself, even then, for you and for me. And he makes this present to us in the Mass. Again, so that, in effect, what you and I can do, and that's why it's so important to have that crucifix above the altar, is that we can stand there where Mary stood and watch Jesus die, so to speak, for us. We can be with him as he suffers for us, and we can be with him as he rises for us. He wants to share his life with us, his life completely, and what's most important is his decision to sacrifice himself and to conquer death. So imagine, I guess the choice is ours. That's a way of putting it. We can decide to come close to that scene, come right up close to the cross, and really live and really enter into that offer of Jesus, or we can stay away. It says in the gospel there were many that stayed at a distance from the cross, that knew Jesus. They didn't come close. But those that came close, they felt the power. You come close to the cross and you feel the power of the love of Christ. It's a dangerous place to be because it'll change your life. It'll make you sacrificial. You will want to do what Jesus does. You will want to offer others the sacrifice of your life. Not necessarily all once getting cut up and crucified, but little sacrifices throughout the day when people need what you can give. When instead of doing, let's think about a sacrifice you could make, and you could certainly think of more than I can suggest, but let's say you have a friend at school that really is having trouble with math. That could be me when I was in high school, that's for sure. And I just can't figure out this math stuff, this algebra. Can you help me? Well, I may have other things. Let's say you may have other things you want to do. Maybe you want to go play. Maybe you got your math all done. It's easy for you, maybe. And you've got other things you want to do with your time. But instead of doing that, you sacrifice your time to help me do what I can't do by myself. That's what we call a sacrifice. What's another word of doing is being generous. Huh? It's a way of loving other people. You give up what you would like to do for me so that I can have something I won't have without you. When you become a parent, when you have children, you'll have to sacrifice all the time. You might want to go to some big concert in Medford, but you've got these children that you can't leave them, can't go. Their child is sick, got to stay. Not even a question. This is what sacrifice is about. Is giving of what we want and what's good, so that other people can live. Huh? Now that's at the very center of the Christian life. That's at the heart of our worship, is this sacrifice of Jesus. So that week after week, that's why, think of that, why do we go to Mass every week? Because this is what we want to be. And this is at the heart of our life. And if we stay at a distance from this, then we're staying at a distance from this kind of love. And we probably won't become that kind of person. But if we regularly come to the cross and the resurrection, then Jesus promises to share this love with us and to change us, to make us more like Him, more like God. That's the promise. So there's two things that the Mass then is this sacrifice of Christ, his sacrifice made present for us, and it's a meal. It's a meal. Huh? Now there's something, it's so simple. It's a meal, and that everyone, we don't notice that there's rich people and there's poor people in our parish. There's people that are sick, there are people that are well. We don't have a special hosts, maybe a special big-size host for all the rich people. We don't say, okay, now we're going to come to communion, but first the rich people will come forward and we'll give them a great big host. Then the poor people come forward and we'll give them a little host. Then the sick people, and we'll give them a little host too. Everyone receives the same. Everyone. There's no distinctions. Which is to say, this is a sign to us, and it's very powerful, at least it is to me. I remember years ago, before I became a priest, one Sunday I went to Mass and I saw a guy with kind of hung over. Evidently, he had been drinking the night before. I could tell that for sure. And I saw him go to communion. And it was something about that just stayed with me all these years. I was glad I was there because I was in union with him. And I had the sense that, I'm not one bit better than he is.